Won't press to the brakes.
The next train to arrive at platform 3B will be the 10:37 Great Western Railway service to Oakhampton. This is the service from Exeter Central.
The next station is Crediton.
Hello everybody and welcome to me just leaving Exeter St David's on a train bound for Oakhampton. Now today I'm going to be sampling the incredibly scenic Oakleys Coaches Service 98, which operates between Tavistock and Yelverton via Princetown and Post Bridge. Now, ever since the Dartmoor Explorer, operated by First Colonel, got withdrawn a few years ago, which used to operate directly from Exeter to Tavistock, and when it was originally started there was also an extra route down to Plymouth, and in its later years the route to Tavistock was withdrawn, just with one route from Exeter to Plymouth. I've always wanted to go on the Oakleys Coaches 98, just because it is an incredibly scenic bus journey, and apart from a few very limited summer services, as well as the 359, which only goes as far as Moulton Hampstead, is one of the most scenic services across Dartmoor. Anyway, as you'll see later on in the video, things soon started to unfold as I arrived into Yelverton. Anyway, here I am arriving into the beautiful Crediton station, which is where the line to Oakhampton, known as the Dartmoor line, splits off from the Tarka line, which heads towards Barnstaple.
This is Crediton.
After passing through Yeovil, which is only served by trains on the Tarka line between Exeter and Barnstaple and gets an extremely limited service even on that line, here I am now in Oakhampton, where I had to change from the GWR train service onto the Stagecoach Southwest Service 118, which would take me across to Tavistock. The bus to Tavistock was formed by one of the many Stagecoach Southwest Optess Solo SR vehicles. These are a mixed bag down here in the southwest, with some of them, like this one, being incredibly nice and other ones being completely knackered, along with the much older Optess Solos, that is the original versions, still in passenger service. I'm unsure if this is one of the original Southwest vehicles or if this is one of the ones that has transferred from Scotland recently. Now, I didn't film too much on the also incredibly scenic, which was quite unexpected, Service 118. However, the scenery was quite spectacular, especially in the Brentall area. And here I am skirting Dartmoor near Mary Tavy. Here I am arriving into Tavistock bus station, which is located just a 5-minute walk away from Tavistock town centre. The bus station is actually a decent size for the amount of buses that serve it, and there are many buses that come here, especially on a Friday, which is the day I was filming this, as a lot of the once-a-week shopper buses from far around Devon tend to serve Tavistock on a Friday. At some stage I will come back here to film buses. As for now, I had to wait for the 98 service, which is one of a few services operated by local bus operator Oakleys Coaches.
know when we can get on.
Here is one of the many ADL Enviro 400 MMC buses you'll usually find on the number 1 service departing Tavistock heading towards Plymouth. Usually on the route there is a mix of Enviro 400 MMCs, usually either being the normal variants or the Scania variants. Here is my vehicle arriving on stand at Tavistock bus station, which is one of the older Optare Solos. This particular one was from 2009, but in all fairness it did look a lot older than that, and it sounded extremely knackered.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here I am leaving Tavistock bus station on the incredibly scenic 98 service, heading towards Yelverton, with our first port of call being one of the local housing estates, and then heading across towards Merivale and Princetown. The service towards Yelverton is scheduled to take 1 hour 15 minutes, or 1 hour 14 minutes to be exact, but in the end it took just over an hour, with the bus running around 5 minutes early in the final part of the journey towards Yelverton.
I won't have to come this way. It's dark inside. Unless you sit by the window, yeah. Where's your window?
Oh yeah, it's
Yeah. She gave you a list of what she wants.
Here I am passing through the beautiful Dartmoor countryside somewhere near Merivale, on the main road towards Moreton Hampstead and Exeter. In a moment we would branch off the main road and head into Princetown. After passing by the iconic prison, which I believe some of which is now a museum, here I am in the town centre in Princetown. Princetown is a medium-sized town, however I would say Tavistock is a little bit better, and it definitely has more bus and rail connections, considering that both Oakhampton and Plymouth stations aren't too far away, and it has a lot more bus services, as well as overall things to do, like the town centre in Tavistock, which is actually quite good. After heading towards Postbridge, we would pass through Princetown once again. Here I am turning around near Bellever at the YHA Dartmoor site, which is apparently a very nice hotel. From what I could see though, it was just a bunch of historic buildings. At this point I was the only person on the bus, and therefore nobody got on and nobody got off here. This would be one of two turnarounds we would make, with the other one being just a few moments back up the lane at Postbridge. Both on the way towards Bellever and on the way back towards Postbridge, we would pass a few Dartmoor ponies. These are absolutely lovely, and it was quite extraordinary seeing one this close up, as the bus pretty much passed straight by it. After turning around in Postbridge near the Dartmoor National Park Visitor Centre, here I am heading back towards Princetown for the final time before making my way across to Yelverton. As I arrive back into Princetown, here you can see the very rear of the prison just about through the misty weather. Here I am on the final leg of the journey between Princetown and Yelverton, making my way across most of southern Dartmoor. This was quite a nice area of Dartmoor, but unfortunately the weather had turned for the worst here, and as I would find out as I arrived into Yelverton, so would my journey on the way home. Now at this moment in time, I was looking to see if my number 1 service back to Tavistock, that is supposed to be quicker than the number 98 service, was running, and well, I realised it might not be. Here I am arriving into Yelverton roundabout, where there was a surprising number of people waiting for other bus services, mostly the 1 service. Here is a number 1 service in the older Stagecoach Beach Ball livery arriving into Yelverton, heading towards Plymouth. A surprising number of people got off the bus, but nobody actually got on the bus here, which suggests to me that most of the people were waiting for my bus, the 1401 to Tavistock. It's just that that bus ended up getting cancelled. I think it was because of the traffic. It didn't look like there had been any breakdowns or anything, though there could have been. However, there are a lot of number 1s running together. Here is the Optus Solar that I arrived on, heading back on the 98 service towards Tavistock via Princetown. I don't think this particular journey served Postbridge though, as there are a lot of varying journeys on the 98 service, with some of them only doing a short loop around Tavistock town. With hindsight, I maybe should have gotten on this bus. Here is the number 1 service arriving into Yelverton to take me back to Tavistock. Now this here is where things really fell apart. This was the bus 20 minutes after the bus I was supposed to be on, which wasn't too bad actually, and I understand why they cancelled the bus from the number 1 service. Even if there was a driver that hadn't turned up, or if there was a breakdown or bad traffic on another service, I do understand why they cancelled the number 1 service, since it runs every 20 minutes, and there are a lot of other services in this area. For example, the 98 service, though that is operated by Oakleys, not Stagecoach, and operate far less than every 20 minutes. However, it did mean that I meant my next connection, and I missed the connection after that. After planning my next couple of steps towards Oakhampton and Exeter, here I am back at Tavistock bus station, which was quite the lively place upon arrival here. And as you can see, there were 2 number 1 services that arrived, the one that I was on and one that arrived just after it, which is now going back to Plymouth presumably, or could be going back to the local Stagecoach bus depot out of service. Now this meant that I had missed the 14:20 118 service back to Oakhampton. Now, if the 3:20 bus service actually departed at 3:20 and actually went to Oakhampton railway station, I would have only been an hour late on my arrival back into Bridgewater later this evening, which wouldn't have been too bad at all really, quite decent for how far I actually went today. However, no. The bus service starts at Tavistock College at 15:20, but is scheduled to depart Tavistock bus station at 15:30. And that actually took nearly an hour to get back to Oakhampton, just like all the other services. But it went to Oakhampton Hospital, not the railway station, which meant I actually missed the 16:25 train from Oakhampton, which then put me 2 hours behind schedule. At this moment in time, things were not looking very good at all, but things were about to take a turn for the worse when the 118 finally arrived into the bus station, near enough on time to my surprise. Here is the 118 service arriving into Tavistock bus station. This is the same Optare Solo SR that I had earlier on my way from Oakhampton to Tavistock. And well, now we would see one of the only flaws in the Optare Solo design. It can't particularly handle many passengers, and well, there were already 1 or 2 students from Tavistock College on the bus, though there were still plenty of seats. But on this bus, there are quite a few passengers waiting, and then you had all the school kids getting on the bus from the local secondary school. I think it was anyway. Now, I don't mind school kids travelling on the public bus. I do that myself since there's no school bus that goes north of Bridgewater. The only ones head south of Bridgewater from where I go to school. However, surely Stagecoach or the school or a local company like Oakleys should organise some sort of separate school bus for the 118 service for the school children to get to and from Tavistock, as this bus was absolutely rammed because there were so many school kids and so many other passengers, as well as the college students from Tavistock. So this wasn't really very good, and in the end I couldn't film much until we had passed Mary Tavy and arrived into Brentall. Even when we did reach Brentall and I could breathe just like a little bit, the windows were extremely dirty and the bus was still quite busy. So in the end, I didn't really film much until I alighted the bus in Oakhampton, and well, this put me 2 hours behind schedule. But at least I was somewhat closer to Exeter. Now, I could walk up the very steep hill or get the 6 service, since that was also running late from Bude, to Oakhampton railway station and wait ages for the 17:25 train from Oakhampton to Exeter. But what's this in front of me? It's an ADO Enviro 300, which had transferred, I think, from Scotland, but it could have been from either Wales or Newcastle area. I can't particularly remember where some of the 300s with Stagecoach South West transferred from. I think there are a mixture of them that transferred from all over the place. Now, since this would get me back to Exeter a little bit before the Oakhampton train arrived into Exeter, you know what I did, didn't you? Yep, I decided to get the 6A service from Oakhampton back into Exeter, since it pretty much took the same amount of time. Well, what I mean by that is that it got in roughly the same time as the train from Oakhampton, whereas the bus itself actually took an hour to get to Exeter. Anyway, that's enough of me complaining and moaning and just... This was extremely complicated by this point, so let's just enjoy this Enviro 300, which was quite nice, but at the same time, it was completely filthy. At least it wasn't overcrowded though. Now, I would have loved to have filmed some of the scenery between Oakhampton and Exeter city centre, but unfortunately by this time night had fallen and, well, you couldn't really see anything. But we did pass through some nice villages from what I could see, including Tedburn St Mary and Pathfinder Village. I'm not too sure which one this was. I think this was Tedburn St Mary. However, just after passing through Pathfinder Village, we did find a small problem. Just after passing through Pathfinder Village, the police went by us. I thought, oh, they're probably just heading into Exeter from a nearby police station, maybe Tavistock or Oakhampton. I would presume Oakhampton. But no, there had been an accident just up the road. Thankfully, I'm very thankful for the police for doing this. They let the bus through before they shut the road off. I'm not sure if they did shut the road off in the end, but it looked like they were about to, so thank God for the police letting us through. Otherwise, I would have been screwed for the rest of the evening, I think. It looked like there had been quite a large pile up here. After passing by that accident and skirting the outskirts of Exeter, here I am passing through the St Thomas area located near Exeter St Thomas railway station and the ex-Bridges area of the city. after just over an hour, which wasn't too bad considering if you look on bus times to Ork, this bus usually runs well over 20 minutes late, here I am arriving into Exeter St David's station. Unlike most of the buses from that area of Devon, the 6A makes a detour to Exeter St David's railway station before arriving into the city centre and bus station. Anyway, there goes that ADL Enviro 300 into the bus station.
Great Western Railway service to Exmouth via Exeter Central.
Here I am now at St David's Station in Exeter, which is a lovely station and is a great opportunity to do some train spotting and train filming here. I do quite like this station, and you do get plenty of trains from all over the place here, from far and wide, and from local towns like Exmouth, Paynton and Barnstaple. And there are still quite a few Class 150s around here, what I do quite like, alongside the Thames Turbo 166 unit. However, there was still opportunity for things to go wrong, and well, they did quite spectacularly. Now, I was going to get the 1827 service, that was a cross-country service, towards Leeds and alight the train at Taunton. I would have done this whether or not I got the train or bus from Oakhampton. However, that ended up running over 20 minutes late, and my connection in Taunton was just over 15 minutes late. Therefore, I missed the train in Taunton. So in the end, I decided to stay at Exeter and get the 1903 service to Gloucester. And that was actually direct to Bridgewater and was scheduled to arrive in just 11 minutes after my connection from Taunton anyway, so this wasn't really a big deal.
Platform 4 for the 1820 Great Western Railway service to Penzance. Calling at Newton Abbot, Totnes, Ivybridge, Plymouth, Saltash, St Germans, Liscard, Bodmin Parkway, Park, St Austell, Truro, Redroof, Campbell, Hale, St Earth and Penzance. This train has 9 coaches. Food and drink is available on the train. First class accommodation can be found on service 3 and 2 standard class.
We are sorry to announce that the 1827 cross-country service We are sorry to announce that the 1827 cross-country service to Leeds via Bristol to Leeds is delayed by approximately 21 minutes. This is due to the emergency services dealing with an incident earlier today. May I have your attention, please? Please note that the short time of departure, train
Now, I don't tend to act smug about many things, however I am quite glad that I did make the decision to wait for the Gloucester train instead of trying to get onto this Leeds train. As per usual, it was an overcrowded cross-country Voyager, albeit it had around 8 or 9 carriages instead of the usual 4 or 5 you find down this end of the world. However, it was still extremely busy, as you can see, and as per usual on a cross-country train, there are people sitting down in the vestibule area, which I think is just unacceptable for a train like this, which goes quite a long way across the country. Anyway, here is the train leaving towards Leeds. If anybody makes it to Leeds on this train, just, yeah, well done.
service to Gloucester. Great Western Railway service to Gloucester, Taunton, Bridgewater, Bristol Temple Mews, Bilton Abbey Wood, Bristol Parkway, Yates, and Burley, and Gloucester. This train has 5 coaches. Due to short platforms, passengers for Bilton Abbey Wood, Yates, and Ham and Dursley should board above 4 minutes.
Here is the 1903 Gloucester service arriving into platform 5 at Exeter St David to take me back to Bridgewater. In the end I arrived into Bridgewater at 1950, which wasn't too bad, however the train was still running about 15 minutes behind schedule, and well, it was quite bad when you consider I was supposed to arrive back at 17:20. That's just how bad cancelling a bus service can be. Although saying that, if you have to cancel a bus service, you have to cancel a bus service. There's not really much else you can do about it. Anyway, here I am departing Exeter St David's, where it looks like a train had arrived in from London on the adjacent platform 6. Here I am arriving into Bridgewater. Now I hope you guys did enjoy this video, which was supposed to be on the 98, but in the end was on a lot of different train and bus services. Anyway, I'm sorry if there are a few bad recordings in this video, both with the voiceover and with the filming itself. This is quite a chaotic video to film, and it was quite a long video to actually edit. So please do accept my apologies for dodgy recordings or voiceovers, and please, I assure you that things will be back to normal very soon, and I will try and stop all of these dodgy recordings and everything. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this video, and I've gotten a few comments that people can't hear me in the video, so that's what I mean by, like, dodgy voiceovers. I do try my best to make people hear me, but anyway, I hope that all makes sense. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, everyone.